Welcome to the Salt Circle Podcast. My name is Hank. With me, as always, is Ben.
Why do I always got to be the sidekick?
Because I say the first part. I guess next time I could, introduce myself as the sidekick.
Yeah.
I think I'll do that.
And
I'll try to keep that in mind.
I mean, you know.
I always put your name
whatever.
first in all the text.
Oh, well, I mean, that's
So
just
that's just
being
alphabetical
yeah, I was going to
also.
say, that's just being alphabetical. I don't feel special at all.
You should feel proud that your name is earlier in the alphabet than mine.
I guess. Is that a status measure? Is that something that people get upset about? Maybe when you're little, right?
Yeah,
Like
definitely
lunch
when you're
line
little.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, stupid. Aaron Abson. I don't know. Aaron Absinthe.
Always getting picked first.
Always
Son
up at
of
the
a
top.
bitch. Son of a bitch.
And then the teacher wants to make you I'm trying to think of a name that is not real. Like Zeke Ziplock is all the way at the end. So the teacher swaps it around now and again, but all the kids who are like in the M's still get fucked anyway. Anyway, we're talking about continuity.
Yeah. Continuity.
Just
The idea. Not like a thing that happens
Yeah.
to be called continuity. No.
yeah, no, I'm sure there is something there, but we're not discussing it. It's probably trash. But
Like most things.
yeah. This idea came about. I was just kind of talking about it one day a little bit. I guess mostly with comic books I'm trying to recall like what I was saying. I know I talked about like comic books because, you know, there's like 100 different versions of every superhero. Like, remember that one time that Superman was bad? Remember that one time that like so and so died? And then,
Look,
like,
some of
people
those
are
aren't
alive.
continuity. Sometimes
Okay,
there's just a
okay.
cyborg that happens to look like Superman, even though he has nothing to do with Superman.
Yeah. Sure. And then
His name is just Hank Henshaw.
eventually all of the Supermen get together and go do, I don't know, play poker or something.
Yeah, there's the Superman that's Obama, and then
Great. Yeah, everybody's Superman. This is this is the comic where everyone is Superman. Then Bruce Wayne gets into town and he's a hero because he's not Superman. Just based on that
that's
fact.
usually how those stories go. But
I don't know. So yeah, and this I don't know, it kind of bothers me. And I guess I can get into why now, or I was planning on it later, sort of set up more, but yeah, I don't like that as a thing. I dislike that there are so many different branches that are, I guess, considered maybe, and see, I don't even know enough to know if I'm phrasing this properly. Like, they're canon, but they're canon in their own space. Is that right? And then some stuff is just like, yeah, we did this. Don't worry about it. It's a thing that we wanted to do for laughs.
Yeah, sometimes that stuff will cross over with mainline continuity stuff. Sometimes it never will because it's too niche or whatever.
Yeah.
Like DC had an imprint for a while that they don't anymore. That was just called Elseworlds, and it was literally like standalone graphic novel style stories that were just about a different universe. Like they weren't part of continuity.
Okay.
It was explicitly just to do weird different ideas.
Yeah.
Like, what if Batman was religious?
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay.
Does Batman Holy Terror?
So, did he still wear black? Did he have like a little?
Yeah.
Did he have like the little collar?
Yeah, I think he had a cross.
Okay.
I forget
So
the
just, like,
nature of the
slap
story.
it the exact same, but they slap a cross on
there's
him.
a story. I think there's a story where Batman's parents were killed by someone with a knife, so then he uses guns. but that might just be an idea someone else came up with. I don't remember.
Does he start saying, what is it, Resquiat and Pace, or Requiat and Pace? all of his
I don't remember.
Oh, no, he doesn't. Well. Yeah, because he doesn't really kill people. That's like not a thing that he.
Nope.
Likes.
I mean, unless it's movie Batman.
Which religion though? Like, what is it? Like Crusade Batman? Like, is he killing heathens?
Yeah, I think it's Catholicism.
I'd go for that, honestly. Crusader Batman.
No, if you want people fighting in Crusade times, those are different stories.
Of course. So, yeah, I guess I don't have too much of a plan for this topic. I suppose, by contrast, like, I look at Superman, Batman, like, Avengers, Justice League, all that stuff, and I'm like, there are parts of this that I'm interested in. But also, I'm one of those people who, if I get into that sort of thing, like, I want to get all the different parts of it. I like the backstories. I like the relations between all the characters and stuff. And then, I mean, if you're jumping into Superman now and you want to get everything, that's a lot. There's a lot of Superman. Like, that is a huge undertaking. And then, yeah, obviously there's, I guess to me it just feels super daunting. Like, which should I read? What should I skip? Is this just bad, or is it part of the stuff that's canon and therefore I still would like to go through it? And that's kind of on my one hand. And on the other hand, I guess the example that I'm going to use, because I'm the most familiar with it, is like Star Wars, which has a pretty clear cut, like, there's no timeline where Yoda was the Sith Lord. Like, he's just...
Are you sure?
I probably, yeah. I'm going to say yes. Lucas held on to Yoda pretty tightly there for a long time. And yeah, kind of what got me thinking about all this was the recent-ish switch over with the Star Wars lore, in that when Disney got Star Wars, they kind of said, yeah, all this stuff that's been going on in books and comics and everything, that's all now called legends, and now we're starting new canon. So
the Great Purge.
Yeah, it's still,
which is really, I mean, that's the big continuity stuff that happened, like the DC primarily did for a while, was mostly that kind of idea of saying, our stuff has become too complicated. We want to make it clearer and one world.
Yep.
Like the first time they did it was Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was specifically, we have too many alternate worlds that are like have their own continuity. There's like Earth 2 and stuff.
Yeah.
So they basically killed off everything else and said this continuity remains. It's much messier than that because it's comics, and it eventually, like, they went back to the multiverse stuff. But
yeah,
in concept, that was a story that was aimed at that same kind of idea.
Yeah, and I know, yeah, there's. I think I mentioned this to you in, like, super briefly in passing, when I was trying to buy some Star Wars comics at the local game store comic book shop, and one of my buddies works there, and I was kind of looking at stuff, and I asked him if they had any of the volumes, because, you know, I don't want to buy like 4 issues of something if I can just buy the volume. And he's like, no, we don't got any of those in, but we have these old, they say legends on them, and they're like these old Republic collections, but they're going to be canon soon because they got, like, Disney got the rights to these specific things that they didn't have because Fox still had them for some reason. I don't know. But, like, that sounded too messy to me, and I'm out. Like, I'm not going to get these things. I'm going on Wikipedia, and if I don't see them in that giant timeline list, I'm not getting it.
Look,
because
never trust someone at a store who's trying to sell you something.
No,
it's my general principle.
Yeah,
never trust someone.
But, like, maybe he's right. I wouldn't doubt it.
No,
I don't know what they, like. Did they not get the rights to Luke? They had, like, everybody but Luke.
No, they didn't have the rights to Luke.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, clone Luke. Fucking
yeah.
I looked that up after that podcast, and it was just magical.
Evil clone Luke.
And that was like full canon though, right? That wasn't just some. I know there's a few things like Star Wars had their few things that like, yeah, no, this is just not canon, but it was still allowed to be published.
I think it was in a comic. I'm not sure.
I mean, enough crazy batshit things happen, so
Yeah.
it's not strange, but yeah, it's...
I mean, the other.
Go on.
Before I go into my big
Oh.
thing with continuity, the other thing that'll happen with continuity though is just with properties that exist for a long time, like certain writers will have their threads and character and like side characters that they introduce and care about,
Sure.
and then once that writer's done, like those things will stop existing at all. Like no one will mention them again.
Okay.
That's like things that are in continuity but kind of stop being part of continuity or mattering just because they
fade
was
out.
creator driven. Yeah.
Okay.
Like that stuff happens all the time too. Like that, I mean, that's like the stuff with, because Marvel for a really long time, they had one continuity going back all the way. Every major story was canon. There wasn't really an alternate universe for a really long time. But there were plenty of things that just didn't come up anymore.
Yeah. Do you have like a rough
forgotten about,
like a rough timeline of that at all, or just it's like a long ass time?
Like I mean, alternate universe stuff started. They started doing stuff with it in the 90s because I think the first big thing was there's an X-Men story, the Age of Apocalypse. The X-Men is like the big one that starts it, I think, because X-Men would do a big part of X-Men is them going to a dark future where everything's terrible.
Okay.
That's like a big part of X-Men is the idea that the future for mutants is bad. Everything in the future is going to be fucked up and terrible.
All right.
So, and there's over the years there were lots of different stories doing the dark future thing, and there were kind of the future would be different because things in the past had changed again, like some like characters coming back to change stuff, and then stuff would be changed. So that sort of established it, and the big one that sort of kicked stuff off was they did a year-long story called Age of Apocalypse, which was for a year all the comics took place in this alternate universe that was this alternate dark future where Apocalypse had taken over.
Yeah, that's...
And it wasn't even like... Even if you just wanted to read it as a story, it would be like reading the first and last issues. It was more just a setting that all the comics took place in for like a year.
Mm-hmm. That's a long haul.
Yeah, and then they followed it up with Onslaught, which was a thing where
Wizards of the Coast decided to...
No, there had been a story where Professor X had stopped Magneto by like shutting down his brain.
Okay.
Like it just been like, Magneto, you've gone too fucking far. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
But that had some negative side effects, and then like the Magneto personality was hanging around in Professor X's brain and mixed with Professor X's own like dark-eyed thoughts and became its own personality and like took over Professor X and called itself Onslaught and looked like super 90s Magneto with lots of spikes.
Okay.
And that storyline ended with all the non-mutant most of the non-mutant characters just like sacrificing themselves to stop him, and then winding up in a pocket universe created by Franklin Richards, who's Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman's son, who's like super powerful, like godlike powers. But he creates an alternate universe to save all the heroes inside his little blue bouncy ball, and they were all in there for a year. And that was like also a back scenes thing where they basically in the 90s, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, basically anything that wasn't X-Men or Spider-Man, didn't sell very well. Like it was X-Men or bust kind of for Marvel at the time, and they were going through bankruptcy, like they were broke. So they sold off like all their properties to Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld basically to make stories for a year. So there was the Heroes Reborn universe, which was those two big creators getting a shot at these, iconic characters to try and gin up some sales in a start over universe. That was actually kind of where I got in on a lot of those characters. Was, oh, this new universe thing is starting. I will start buying these comics because I literally don't have to worry about any other continuity.
Yeah, and see, that's how I am with Star Wars right now. Like, oh, there's a
Yeah.
new canon. I don't have to worry
Yeah.
about 40 years of bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay.
And I mean, those stories have their problems, but that lasted for like a year until they sent everything back. But by then, I had been reading enough stuff that I was like in.
Yeah.
And even when they came back, it felt like another start over, kind of. And when they got back, they put better creators on them, so those comics were kind of
Sure.
better. Like particularly Avengers was like that started a really the best Avengers run with George Perez and Kurt Busiek writing it.
And the 90s were kind of like, I've never fully looked into this. It's just like
Yeah.
the bits of knowledge that I've gained over the years. The 90s were kind of like the comic book slump, right? Like people just kind of started getting,
Well-
from what I've heard, it was, I have no idea how true this is. Someone once described it as like, yeah, people got sick about reading about straight white males saving the day every goddamn time.
That's
I-
not what,
yeah,
what happened
okay.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
90s. That's just a wrong.
Okay,
That's
fair
just
enough.
wrong. The
Fair
problem
enough.
with the
It's a learning
90s was fucked
opportunity.
up was there was a speculator boom where people were super like seeing high prices for old like Action Comics issues at auctions created a boom
okay.
where people were just buying comics just to buy them, and they were like super into buying number ones. They did all these like limited edition special shit, like they would put a holographic trading card glued to the front of the book
Yeah.
and just like all kinds of promotional stuff. Like the highest selling comic book of all time is a comic book from the 90s. It's X-Men #1 by Jim Lee drew. I think Claremont wrote that. And that's just because it was like people were buying like 7 copies of it or something.
Yeah,
They thought
so
it would
they
be
were-
worth money because they were fucking morons.
Yeah, because they're doing like they're trying to invest in it. Okay.
Yeah, they're investors without understanding that with this comic that everyone is buying, it's never going to be worth anything.
I've definitely encountered that trope. It's just kind of something I guess that hadn't, you learn it and then you kind of sit it on the back burner. Okay,
Yeah.
I've definitely
it was
encountered
just a
that.
fact of buying comics when I was getting into it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is just a fact of the world. But like looking back on it, it's like the people were just fucking idiots. I don't understand.
Yeah, and I know that's I've talked about this with a friend once, because over the years there's been a couple of times where I'm like, I've thought about reading comics and stuff, and this person is someone who I'm not. You know what? We're just gonna like go for broke. Okay, so the person is Crump. I was trying to like not have another Crump story. I was trying to not do that, but I just can't. So there's Crump and there's my friend Mike, and Crump basically
Yeah.
like, Mike does this thing, so I'm going to do this thing. Mike said this, so that thing is now what I think. Like there's a bit of that, not 100%, but there's quite a bit. And Mike still definitely has. I think he just knows enough people, and he was. I mean, I don't know exactly how old he was at the time, but old enough to be enjoying comics and stuff in the 90s, so he remembers that, and he still knows a couple people who just never stopped that mentality. Like they'll just buy comic books and try to like view it as an investment.
Yeah.
And so he was like talking about this to Crump, and somehow it got construed as like, don't get into comics. Like, it's a terrible investment. I'm like, is it a terrible investment if I want to read them and enjoy them? I don't think that's how that works. Like, don't get into books. You'll never be able to fucking sell it for the value.
I mean, it's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like, even
yeah.
when I mentioned I was going to get into Star Wars comics, he's like, why? I'm like, 'cause I want to read the Star Wars
Oh,
comics.
because I want to read stories and I like
Yeah.
the form. It's not. I don't just Why would I buy physical media because I wanted to sell it? I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, that. And it's like that's a thing
Invest
that
in stocks or something. Like,
Yeah.
we do actual investing. What
no,
are you doing?
and for people who are like a lot of all these people that I encounter in this store, because it's also the Magic the Gathering hub. They're people in that group are used to the idea of like, oh, I'm buying this card because I'm speculating on it, because that's still more or less a thing. But
Yeah.
it's even at that point, it's like investing in Bitcoin right now, which I might have already made the analogy on this podcast, but you're too late. You're way too late.
Yeah. Way too late.
So, okay.
Yeah. So that was the big problem with comics in the 90s. Like,
Alright.
that was the overriding thing. The other thing was, Marvel was going out of business, so they didn't. They had
just
a
didn't.
lot of other problems. Basically, before Marvel got bought by Disney, their company was a fucking disaster.
That sounds right.
That's why they sold off all those movie rights.
And how do the movies play in? Like, are they treated as completely separate from the comics, or are they?
Oh,
tied in?
the movies are their own
Okay.
continuity.
All right. I
It
assumed
wasn't
as such,
until
but
it even wasn't until like the Incredible Hulk movie where Tony Stark and Samuel L. Jackson show up in the credits that the idea of the movies having continuity with each other was even a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, before that, it's like, oh, the Batman movies are sort of in continuity with the Tim Burton one, and then the ones after that, the Shoemaker
Sure,
ones,
yeah.
are kind of in continuity with each other. But it's like, once the creator shift happens over, they're kind of not. Like, they don't like, they completely
Yeah.
changed who Harvey Dent was from one movie to the next, just because they didn't care. So that was kind of just how it was. And then again, Batman Begins is a whole new movie continuity.
yeah.
And then Man of Steel started a whole new DC Marvel continuity.
See, I mean, I think I don't know exactly what was the first successful like Marvel movie. Like
First
recent,
successful
like, not
Marvel
first
movie
not
period
first,
was
okay,
Blade.
Okay, but I mean, like, fucking in like Avengers sort of era.
The
'Cause,
first
like,
one is Iron Man.
was it that the first? Okay, I thought there was,
That was-
one. I thought there was
No,
one
that's
before that I.
That's the first like Marvel brand movie.
Okay.
There's the Hulk movie before that, which I don't think is in continuity at all.
Okay, so the Hulk,
that exists.
the Hulk one that
Ang Lee
you were
Hulk.
talking about, that came after Iron Man.
Yes, that's the Incredible Hulk. That's the one with
Okay.
Norton. Edward Norton.
Yeah. Okay. See, I like Iron Man was definitely the first one that I saw, because like everybody fucking saw Iron Man, and
Yeah,
it was
very.
and it
I mean,
was-
that's
yeah,
why
and it was great.
That's why it kicked it off. Is because it
Yeah.
was so successful. Like, the
Yeah,
Hulk is
exactly.
not in continuity because it was kind of a flop.
And then I forget. It's been a while since I've seen the first one. I know there's like the little mention with like Captain America's shield, and that's cool. I'm like, okay, like I know who that character is. And then obviously they like do Captain America. They have the Avengers. They have all this interconnectivity. And for me, after a certain point, I'm like, I can't. I don't like any. Like, there's some of these movies that I just don't like enough to. I don't want to have to bother. Honestly, I just want more. Just want more Iron Man.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the thing Marvel invented in terms of movies that changed the industry. Was the idea of movie continuity and like serializing their movies that way.
Yeah,
Kind
absolutely.
of wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
with the exception of like long running single series, but even then, like a lot of like James Bond is not like, it's like, yeah, there are all these Bond movies, but is that one continuity?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
kind of not.
it's different, but absolutely it's well, then in like I naively thought like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy, like I could get into those, and then they do crossovers and shit, and I'm like, god damn it. I just wanted Guardians, and obviously you don't have to watch any of the crossover stuff, but
I mean, they technically haven't done any crossovers until this next one that's coming out.
well, yeah,
It's
but
literally
like it's
just
happening.
Guardians 1 and 2.
It's happening
Yeah.
though. Like
It is happening.
I don't think they're not going to do it at this point.
No, that trailer shows the Guardians in it at the end. It exists already.
Yep.
That's
So
that's comic books, man. Stuff gets messy.
yeah, no, it's just, and I think it's so interesting seeing it on on the big screen. Like that's just, and it's a cool concept. It's not that I don't like it. I don't like engaging in it. I like watching it from afar, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Because as I said, like I enjoy backstories and interconnectivity and things.
Yeah.
And I suppose with the movies, there's not, at least at this point, I don't think it's been long enough. It's not like you have the alternate branching things too much.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah, it's gonna come up when those actors need to be replaced.
No,
I think
no, they're gonna
that's
play
gonna
the
be
same roles until they get old or killed off,
I mean,
and they're gonna keep it all in the continuity.
Robert Downey Jr. I'm sure has played Iron Man way longer than he thought he would. Is going to.
Yeah, but when the money
Already
is
at this
there,
point. Yeah, I mean they keep paying him.
yeah,
It's like, yep, I'll be done. Oh, you're gonna pay me that much? Oh, okay. I'll keep going.
mm-hmm.
As opposed to Samuel L. Jackson, who got like, no, you're paying me for 17 movies up front. Let's go.
I'm in.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is, for me, like, my love of weird different continuities, like I can trace it back to like super early with stuff I got into. Like just a lot of it comes from just like myths, like liking myths, that the idea that there is this classical story but there are different versions of it because it was told orally, so like every time they were telling it would be kind
Okay.
of different.
Sure.
Just like these different versions. I also got super obsessed as a kid with the song Froggy Went a Courtin', that just like this folk song that just has all these different, like the structure of it's always the same, but there are all these different little variations of it. People would do different things with it. I always liked that stuff of saying this core thing is the thing and all these variations, which is like similar to me to the way a lot of movies get worked anyway, of like action movies. Like the principal stories of action movies, it's like there's a core to it. Like Die Hard is like a formula and they just apply it, but they change the characters and stuff. It's not that far off for me of saying we're taking this idea and we're going to do it slightly differently. But the core thing that's there is still kind of the same.
Yeah. I was thinking about, I guess, just back to on the Star Wars side, how it's kind of interesting. Like, I think in Legends, so in the Old Lore, there's definitely there's a novel about Darth Plagueis, because there had to be at a certain point, like it was gonna come up, and people love this novel. And it's still one of the highest selling Star Wars novels. Like continually, people are still buying it, even though it's not canon. Because for a lot of people, they're like, "Fuck your new canon! Like this is I'm taking it off the rails. I'm doing my thing now, and I'll choose what I believe."
Like
I
a
guess.
sane person.
Yeah. Someone not.
I
me.
like the things that I like, not what has been corporately mandated for me to consume. Like, whatever.
I just, yeah, as I said earlier, I'm just, if I go into the old stuff, I'll need to go into all the old stuff. I just don't have time or money to do that later, baby. When I'm retired,
Completionist problem.
Yep, absolutely. But there is, do you know Timothy Zahn?
I mean, yeah, I'm aware.
Okay, so he's done some other stuff, but for those not in the know, he was kind of the guy who, some people have used the term saved Star Wars. I don't know that it needed saving necessarily, but he wrote the first kind of expanded universe stuff in the form of some novels back in the day. And much later, he wrote some books about a character called Thrawn, who I actually don't know too much about. I think he comes up in Clone Wars, like the show. So I'm waiting to see. He wrote a trilogy, and I guess a combination of him liking that character enough and people liking that character enough, like he's doing another trilogy that's in the new canon. And I was thinking that I might actually have to like dive into both of those because I'm incredibly curious about, are you doing the same story so you can have it be in the canon officially, or are you just gonna kind of mix it up and do whatever? I don't know. I find that
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Like,
That's the kind of thing I usually do with comics, which is just say, "Oh, I like this writer. I'm gonna see all the stuff that this writer has done with these characters. Like that's a through line that you can pick at and say, this is something I can grasp onto." Because that's like a lot of the way I approach comics is finding something I like, and then finding out ways in which I can branch off to that, maybe to find stuff I'd like otherwise. Whether it be one writer going through this, or a lot of times I feel like it's with comics, it's editors. Because
okay.
like whenever like this period of time when these books had this editorial direction, so they had this mandate, so they had this one central driving thing, was like that worked. Like
So you're gonna find
and
out.
a lot of times though, sometimes though, what hooks me is something small and stupid. Like I got into X-Men because it was like, oh, this X-Men comic features Namor on the front. I know who Namor is. I know what Namor is about. That's like a thing I can grasp onto and read this book. And then once I had that information, I then like branched backwards and forwards from that story to find the full thread of that narrative. That was how I finally got into X-Men, which for many, many, many years was completely impenetrable to me, because I think X-Men comics are one of the most complicated things in all of comics, unless you're starting from the very beginning of Chris Claremont's run and just working forward, which is a thing you can do. But
I mean, I've
I don't know if
definitely
his style.
I've certainly judged a comic by its cover. It's never actually led anywhere because sometimes I'm scared that like I don't know what I'll find within myself. But I'll be walking through the comic store and like, fuck, that looks good.
Yeah, the problem with covers is a lot of times they'll have different cover artists.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I like that cover
you.
artist.
That's how they get you. Well, so then what you got to do is look up who drew the cover, then find out what stuff they've done, and then okay.
Exactly.
So what I'm getting from all of this is that you're going to find out who was responsible for Luke, and then see what else they're up to these days in the new canon.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
But the thing that I also like about messy continuity is that it leads to stories you can only tell with that kind of stuff.
how do you mean? Like
with universe crossover stuff, there are weird kinds of stories you would never get to otherwise.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Like for example, for me, at the end of the Ninja Turtles cartoon that started in like 2006 or whatever, it was the second major series. Once it was ending, they did a standalone movie to cap it off, where those turtles crossed over with the type of turtles from the original cartoon, and like the 2006 turtles were edgier, and they would say "what the shell" all the time, and then the older turtles were super jokey. And so they told a story. They crossed over with those. The villains crossed over, and then it ended with them all crossing over into the original comic book, like a black and white world that the Ninja Turtles were originally. That original single issue. That's a much darker tone because it's a Frank Miller Daredevil parody. Ninja Turtles, created by the same chemical spill that gave Daredevil his powers. It's a fact.
Really?
Yes.
I never fucking knew.
That's drawn into the first issue. But
holy shit. I did not. I never think about
mean,
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
Like,
they're not
they're always
technically in the
just-
Marvel universe, but that's the idea. I think they're also kind of an X-Men parody in terms of like being mutants.
the
So,
X Turtles.
Yeah, but they're totally a parody of this particular kind of dark comic that then became this beloved kids property. It had a
Yeah.
completely different tone.
Well, they're
It's just a
turtles.
funny thing.
They're
Yeah, they're ninjas, or they're
cute.
heroes if you're in Europe.
They're cute little turtles. What they're called, the Hero Turtles.
Yeah, I don't think they're allowed to say put ninja on the cover in here.
Is it actually the hero?
Teenage-
That's fucking
Teenage Mutant
fantastic.
Hero Turtles. Yeah.
That's great. Oh,
So you can tell if something Ninja Turtles thing was made in Europe. It says hero instead of ninja.
oh, that's great. I never knew that. Oh man, I don't know why that's so funny to me. Hero Turtles. They're turtles, but they're heroes. Like how?
Yeah, it's
how
just,
are they?
I mean,
How are they heroes?
it's just funny because like the original cartoon, which was the thing I care about, is not really like the original comics at all. But then the movie takes way more from the comics, the live action movie, but it's still mostly like the cartoon. It's like this weird mishmash between the two of them.
Okay.
That's that also clearly obsessed with Star Wars because Shredder says I am your father to a bunch of kids just
Oh, no.
because, why not? But I mean, he also ends that movie by getting thrown into the back of a garbage truck and crushed. So, kid friendly.
Yeah.
Late 80s.
You act like trash, you become trash.
Yeah.
Morals.
And then the 2006 cartoon tried to take more stuff directly from the comic, even though I don't love that show. And then seeing that stuff like all thrown together in a way of like, and having those differences stand out through a narrative, I like having that stuff exist, but then also having the fun of mashing it up together. Like it's like the fun of buying this one toy and buying this other toy and smashing them together because it's that
A piece of shit who just destroys new things.
yes. Yeah. You just like
Oh, I gotcha.
seeing stuff rub
Maybe
against
maybe
each other to see what happens.
You you like seeing stuff rub up against each other.
Yeah.
Hank 2018. I feel like a Lego analogy would have gone a long way there. It's like buying two different
I
Lego
love
sets.
Legos, yes.
And you just
Mix it all together.
I see the appeal for sometimes like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna get this awesome Star Destroyer set and I'm gonna assemble it, I'm gonna keep it that way, and I'm gonna put it on display. That's fine, I understand that. On the whole, I'm definitely one of those people like, okay, I built it, now I'm gonna tear the fucker apart and see what else I can do. And then all the pieces go into a giant box with all the other pieces from all the other sets. And the instructions are gone. And now we're
me and my friends had our own like world where we set up nations and had weird politics with our Lego characters. So like they would buy a new set, it would be like a story thing that would happen that now this one of these sides was getting this new ship or whatever that would make them more powerful.
That's way more intense.
We were pretty intense about our the way we played with Legos.
God damn.
There was the main faction, there was like the villain faction, and there was my third faction that was mostly, because it was at my friend's house, so it was mostly built out of leftover stuff that was super mercenary and was into like the idea of selling weapons to both sides and that kind of stuff.
Do you guys ever have an alternate timeline?
No, we never did.
I never branched. I mean, it's not too late. Reconnect. Bring it back. The comeback. Now you could do like stop motion stuff.
Yeah.
Could do it up. Now I'm just thinking like Lego movie. Is there continuity? Do we even know? Like the Batman Lego and then the Lego movie?
No, because the Lego Batman movie, I think even the Lego Batman who's in Lego Batman movie is different than the Lego Batman who's in the Lego movie.
I thought it was the same.
No, he looks slightly different, so you can tell.
Oh, okay.
They're different.
He's
Like
the,
he acts similar.
is he the religious Lego Batman?
No, he acts similar, but he's not the same.
Okay.
He's because in Lego Batman, it's just the Batman world. It's not. They don't get it as meta with it in that way. They never bring the real world into it in that movie.
Yeah.
Like they do in the Lego movie, but
Okay.
they do get meta with it. They do. Like the Joker can like hires a bunch of characters who are not from the Batman world, and it's just like it's hilarious. It's like because the Lego movie was pretty out there with how many references to weird stuff they got, but the Lego Batman movie is much more toned down. It's like, here's all the Warner Brothers properties we could assemble. So here's, the Kraken from, and here's the Eye of Sauron.
Oh,
here's Voldemort.
Oh man. Oh no.
And here's,
And Batman won against all these things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
yes. The Eye of Sauron is a villain in Lego Batman. Spoiler
what a
alert.
shitty movie.
So it's clearly the best Lord of the Rings movie.
God damn it. No, you were supposed to save that for our second Lord of the Rings podcast. You've ruined everything. Now there's not going to be enough content.
Oh no.
Actually, no. This is reminding me. Black Mirror spoilers for anyone who watches the show and or hasn't seen the 4th season yet. I don't know if that includes you, actually, Hank.
I don't really watch Black Mirror.
Okay, so you don't really care.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so the whole thing is episodic. Like, there's never... You could jump in on season 4 and start watching shit, and you'll be like, yeah okay, I'm up to speed. Like, there's no relation. In the final episode of season 4, there's, like, this crime museum, and this guy's, like, assembled all this different shit from... it's all building up to the big, dark, revealing ending. But there's, like, all these items in the museum, and they're all these items from other episodes. And I'm like... What do we got going on here? Like, I guess I'll need to rewatch at some point and see if they, in fact, are all meant to take place in the same universe, or if it's just like they're there. Is this an alternate universe? Is this some bullshit? We don't know. I don't know. But I thought that was super cool. I kind of like stuff like that. Where it's just not explained, it's just kind of there. It's so tantalizing. Maybe they're gonna bring it up in season 5. If I assume there's a season 5. I guess I actually have never looked into that either, but I assume there will be. And if it gets brought up, that's cool. Or probably more likely they will just do a tiny bit on it, and it will never get mentioned ever again. Which is, that's a Black Mirror thing to do, I think.
I'm trying to...
Yeah, it sounded like you were looking something up. So
I'm looking up a thing because I'm trying to remember the details of it. So I need
Look
you
at
to...
this guy not even fucking prepared for the podcast. Unbelievable. How dare
not
you?
At all.
How dare you not
I'm a monster.
be prepared for every possible branch of conversation? It's a shame.
I blanked on a thing.
Oh, yeah, that happens. If I knew more chemistry jokes, this would not be a problem.
Okay, I've got another just interesting weird continuity thing that I know exists.
Okay.
So there was for a while they were running in Archie comics.
Oh boy.
They were
I knew it was going to be Archie. I fucking knew it was going to be Archie.
They were running they were telling stories that were like in the future when the characters were adults. And there was one comic that was telling what if Archie had ended up with Betty, and there was another comic running simultaneously that was what if Archie had ended up with Veronica. And they were like, it's kind of the same continuity, but with just that one difference.
Yeah.
And it all came to a head with the comic The Death of Archie, which was told in such a way that it was It was just one issue that was in continuity with both continuities.
What?
And like and ended with Archie basically takes a bullet to save someone's life.
Right. Okay.
And
I
then
was
it
gonna
ends
ask
with a
about that.
panel of both Betty and Veronica over him and him just saying I love you before he dies.
Jesus Christ. Okay, I didn't know that's how that. I had heard about that.
So that's how it ties together. It's like so you can read it as the end for this continuity or this continuity.
Wasn't I remember reading about this? Wasn't it like something like the guy that was supposed to be killed was gay, and
Yes.
it was like so and so's way of saying like, yeah, like I support the LGBT movement and all that stuff.
Yeah, that stuff was there too.
Okay.
That stuff's less interesting to me. Like, yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's
but
just like, yeah, you sure you have a gay character who's running for office. That's a good idea.
oh wait. Yeah, that's. I don't know. All this, I still can't believe that like the Archie versus Predator nonsense is actually a thing.
I mean, that's so the first thing they did with that was there was an Archie versus Punisher story.
How? How did Archie not get his shit wrecked?
Well, so Punisher was after some criminal who happened to look exactly like Archie. Is sort of the
What
the
style?
idea.
What style was it told in? Was it like the traditional like Archie comics? Like
Yeah, it looked like an Archie comic.
Was Jughead?
Yeah.
Was everybody fucking firing off quips as the Punisher tries to like behead Archie?
Yeah, I mean, it was more toned down than a standard Punisher comic, I would say. Whereas Archie vs. Punisher, Predator, is not toned down. I would also say, like the violence in that's Archie vs. Predator is more what you actually want from a crossover like that because it's actually super violent
Yeah.
and
Oh,
not
that's-
just a weird goof, which is really all Archie vs. Punisher is. It's just
What's the latest? I think I mentioned. I don't know if that was in the latest or in the last podcast or not, or if it was just in conversation. But I mentioned seeing like the poster that just had like Veronica and Betty on it, like drawn real done up, I guess, and it looks like they're about to les out. Like, what's the deal with that? Is it like a Betty and Veronica comic? Is that a thing? I feel like that's a thing.
probably a thing. There's plenty of Betty and Veronica subtext stuff for comics and fans shipping them. Like there's nothing I think official about them ever hooking up though. I think it's all just like weird coding artists people slip in there or whatever, or unintentionally put in there in older ones, I think.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there was like a period of time when Archie was written by super conservative, uptight person who clearly had lots of sexual and weird issues about stuff. So those comics are insane.
That makes sense. What era was this for those? Do you know roughly?
I don't remember like when it was.
Okay.
I don't have the details on that. I've read about it more than I've actually ever read those comics.
All right. It's like I could see myself getting into Archie to some degree, because I don't know. Like my mom had a bunch of old, like I guess volumes lying around that we'd like read when we were kids now and again. That and Garfield. I actually had the the Garfield volume where like he's in the house alone or something.
Oh,
like in a
Garfield
abandoned house.
Alone?
Yeah,
The best
like,
Garfield story?
Yeah, we actually had that. And it's like I never thought about it when I was a kid, but then like looking back, I'm like, oh fuck.
The
Yeah,
one that proposes that all of
Everything-
Garfield is a hallucination by a dying, abandoned Garfield.
yeah.
That's why he loves lasagna, man. Because he's
Yeah.
really hungry. Because he's
Yeah.
dying. He's
What
starving
a
to death.
what a fucking direction to go.
Yeah, people didn't like that story. People wrote in to Jim Davis.
I
saying,
mean,
like that's
understandably.
see that's the reason why I look at like any Garfield after that is like that's super boring, and like It's like, yeah, of course, because Jim Davis was like yelled at out of being creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Jesus,
nope,
maybe he was
everything
going.
is just.
Maybe he wanted to write about Garfield on the street, so that was gonna be his intro, and then just flopped.
He just wanted to. I mean, what I also it's like way more like the framing of stuff. He's like using different angles and doing weird stuff with
no,
the panels.
100% different.
He's like doing stuff, and then it's just like, nope,
Back to the same old bullshit.
just the laziest. Although, if you the Garfield minus Garfield is also a great thing.
Garfield minus Garfield is great.
Because you just realize how sad and pathetic a person John Arbuckle is. It's just the other one that's good is Garfield minus Garfield is excellent. It's also good if you just take out all of Garfield's word balloons, but Garfield's still there as just like a normal cat.
Yeah.
And have John yelling at him. That also works.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was actually thinking about this the other day. Didn't someone do something similar for the Family Circus? Or something with the Family Circus?
I don't know about that.
I feel like someone did. I can't remember exactly what the theme is, but I don't know. That's one that I think out of all the newspaper strips or anything like that, I think Family Circus bugs me the most.
I mean, Family Circus is awful. Yeah. I think Croc is actually the worst, but
not familiar. Didn't make its way to Nowhereville, Wisconsin.
That's fair. My favorite like fan reading of a comic though is is you read Marmaduke and you just assume it's actually about the main dad in it is Hitler and this is his punishment. Is living with Marmaduke.
Oh my god.
That's a famous fan reading of Marmaduke.
That's pretty great.
The other one is the other way you read it is that Marmaduke is actually eating people all the time off screen, and it's all everything about it is appeasing him before he eats humans.
Jesus.
There's a good site, the Comics Curmudgeon, who does like little he'll like write up little things about Sunday comics that paper comics that he likes and make jokes about stuff. That's where I've gotten a lot of stuff and discovered the joys of terrible and making fun of print comics that are bad.
Yeah.
Like print Spider-Man is pretty amazing cuz he's so bad at being Spider-Man.
Wait, like
it's incredible.
Which print Spider-Man?
A newspaper Spider-Man.
There's a newspaper Spider-Man?
Yes. It's written by Stan Lee for years.
Wow. Okay.
The only reason Spider-Man and Mary Jane got married in comic books was because in newspaper Spider-Man, Stan Lee was having them get married, and it was such a big news deal. Marvel felt like they had to jump on the bandwagon, even though with the way the story was, it didn't quite make sense for Spider-Man and Mary Jane to get suddenly getting married in comics.
Force them together.
Yep.
Oh. I had no idea. That would be weird as hell. Okay, whatever.
So that happens. Newspaper Spider-Man. I have collections of the earlier issues, which are actually really good. Because it was started by Stan Lee would write it and John Romita Sr. would draw it. So that's classic Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
But as it's gone along, Spider-Man's he's just terrible at being Spider-Man. He's just really bad at it. It's pretty amusing.
He's been Spider-Man for what? Like, by the end of it, like 60, 50, 100 years. How long has Spider-Man been Spider-Man?
Look, there's So did you know? Okay, speaking of continuity stuff,
did I know?
Did you
the answer
know
is probably no.
That Batman is perpetually preserved at being 29 years old.
I did not.
That's a fact about Batman. The reason
hold on,
Frank Miller wrote The Dark Knight was because he suddenly realized he turned 30 and he suddenly realized Batman was younger than him and he wanted an old man Batman story where Batman is Cranky old
Yeah,
man.
like I was gonna say, there's whatever. Um, I can't fucking think of it. One of the cartoons where it was like the next Batman.
Oh, Batman Beyond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Because I remember there was like old Batman.
Yeah.
Like
Batman Beyond, where it's just Spider-Man. They're actually
that
just
makes
telling,
sense. In hindsight, that
the villains are like, a lot of the villains are just direct Spider-Man riffs. It's really funny. But I really like Batman Beyond. But yeah, that's kind of an exception.
yeah
I'm just saying main continuity Batman is
is
preserved
29.
at 29.
That's weird.
That's like they're always preserving the year Captain America got unfrozen. Like they're always pushing that forward theoretically every year also. So
Okay.
he's just frozen for a longer period of time
All right.
as we get further and further away from World War II. So that's the thing where like the way comics have to remain static with preserving continuity gets weird. It gets extra weird because I think a lot of my favorite comics are from legacy characters who are like teenagers, who those characters are like allowed to grow up in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I like seeing those characters grow up, but it becomes a weird thing, and they a lot of times end up getting forgotten instead of being able to continue because they have to, age out or whatever.
Yeah.
So it gets weird. It gets weird.
Where does the I think this is like one of the things that initially made me think of this because I really enjoyed it and I guess I'd never again, it's one of those things that I see it and I like it and I just never end up following up on it. The Hulk comic where he's like the last thing on Earth. And there's like all these giant fucking bugs and like he's just always Hulk because Hulk doesn't want to die.
Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of future Hulk stories. I'm not sure which the one you're thinking of is, but like a classic thing for Hulk is there's like a character, I think it's Maestro, is like a possible future for Hulk where he becomes super evil but like smart and like kills all the heroes. And he's like has Captain America's shield and like Thor's hammer because he's just like he's just killed everyone.
Yeah.
Like Future Imperfect was the name of I think the story that introduced that idea. I think. But
yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of.
I just like that concept. I like things that toy with like what if Hulk or I mean not exclusive to Hulk.
Oh,
but
you love continuity, but you like what ifs. All right.
I no the concept of it could be the end. It could be the end game for a single timeline. I don't give a fuck. But
yeah.
Hulk is like the last living thing on Earth, and then obviously you can extend that to what if he like just outlives fucking everything, that sort of deal.
Yeah, there was a Marvel comic series that was just called What If. That would just be
then they just,
like, what if this happened? And a lot of those stories are really stupid, but
that sounds right.
What if the Punisher became Captain America?
Oh, that'd be Captain America.
What if Captain America woke up today?
And then they just that one from what you said earlier just sounds like they do that one like every once in a while anyway.
Yeah, that wasn't how that story went though.
Are there any like primordial, I guess, heroes or villains like the Earth came up or the galaxy came about and then this thing came about as well? Sort of the inverse.
Plenty of cosmic characters.
Okay, but nothing
like I think in continuity, life on Earth was created by the Celestials, which are these big Jack Kirby styled dudes who are like Galactus-y in terms of just being big and weird. And then they created the Eternals. I think the Eternals might actually be close to the thing you're thinking of, or like a split off race of humans created by the Eternals.
That
stuff exists.
There's maybe I mentioned it during our webcomic podcast, but the webcomic Gunnar Krigg Court has a character. There's like this character that's just kind of there. It's a side character, whatever. It's like someone they have a desk job or some bullshit, but it's all like everyone is kind of supernatural at this institution. And I guess her shtick is that she was just like there. Like she's just always been there, like on Earth. So it does this really well done, like just art montage of like, okay, like she's waking up in a pool of lava, and then she's like in, ancient Egypt or wherever, and then Greece, and so on and so forth. I'm like, that's cool. I could go for more of this. And then they just never fucking address it ever again. Or at least not yet anyway. Yeah. I'm like, all right, sure.
And there's just some stuff in like with comics, like Marvel Comics, Thor is a major character. Hercules also exists in the Marvel universe and is a pretty major character.
Yeah.
like those pantheons of gods, like they just all exist, like just all of them.
Actually,
done stories crossing them over.
The proper pronunciation is Heracles. So
Heracles. Yeah, in Marvel Comics he's Hercules. Okay.
Okay, well, you know what? Some of us prefer the real pronunciation. I can just imagine. I actually knew a couple people when Thor came out.
Yeah.
And they literally just went to it. They were like, it wasn't close to what it should be at all. That's not how Norse religion is.
Like, you're correct. You're not Marvel wrong. Comics version of Thor is not really like the Norse mythology version. They are different things.
Yeah, I couldn't even believe, like, what did you expect? You thought like comic book Thor was gonna be spot for spot, like okay, whatever, I guess.
That's funny.
Yep.
That's a funny thing.
Hey, maybe in another timeline, maybe Marvel will go like old school Thor.
I mean, there's a pretty fairly recent Thor story where it was being told from like 3 different time periods of Thor's life, like one when he was super young, one where he's super old, and like regular Thor.
Yeah.
And like stuff was happening simultaneously to these 3 Thors, and it comes together at the end, kind of thing.
That sounds interesting.
Like that existed. That was like the last Thor story before they introduced Lady Thor.
Right, I remember seeing that. There was I don't know which I saw more, of people getting upset that Thor was going to be a chick, or people getting upset that people were upset that Thor was going to be a chick. From what I recall, the argument against it was that they were doing it just to do it. Like, oh, you're just making Thor a woman because social justice warriors, blah, 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 feminism, blah, blah, blah. But, based on what I've learned today, just today about comics, like, that's no different than any other nonsense.
like any story exists for any reason. Like,
you did it just because you fucking could. I'm surprised it didn't happen. Or wasn't Spider-Man black once? If not, still, wasn't Captain America black or something? There have definitely been some.
Look, okay, Captain America lost his powers and became an old man, so the Falcon became Captain America briefly. Sam Wilson was Captain America, although he still had his Falcon wings.
Okay.
I don't remember if they actually even finished that. I know regular Captain America has finally just recently started his own book again. I don't know what Sam Wilson's up to, just because I'm not up to date. The thing with Spider-Man being black was in the Ultimate Universe continuity, which was an alternate continuity started in the early 2000s, specifically with the idea of these are modern versions of these characters that new readers could just hop onto, that then went on too long and got its own nightmare continuity stuff.
Naturally.
And there were plenty of... And the Avengers stories and the X-Men stuff was also really bad. But the Spider-Man stuff was really good. Ultimate Spider-Man's one of the best Spider-Man comics. But eventually, they killed Ultimate Peter Parker. What's hilarious is they did a story where they were going to kill Ultimate Peter Parker, and then he didn't die. And then, a year later or something, they did a story where they actually killed him, which is, classic comic books of saying, we're going to do this idea, but we don't have the balls to actually do it yet, so we're going to cop out. But then later, we will do it. So they killed Ultimate Peter Parker, and he was followed up by Miles Morales, who got bitten by a similar type of spider as Spider-Man and had exactly the Spider-Man powers, but was a new character.
How convenient.
And then they started doing stuff with Ultimate Universe crossing over with the regular universe. There was the Spider-Man comic, where Spider-Man, mainline Peter Parker goes to the Ultimate Universe and like has tearful, emotional scenes with these characters who lived through Peter Parker dying, and now here's a more adult version of Peter Parker showing up. So that was a thing. But
Great.
but they've actually ended the Ultimate Universe, and the characters they cared about from Ultimate Universe are just in mainline Marvel continuity now, I think. Mm-hmm. Because of stuff that happened. So
yeah, because of stuff that happened.
The other thing with Marvel is just like that I like is they're just like, yeah, there are multiple versions of characters. Like there are 2 Hawkeyes. There's Clint Barton and then there's Kate Bishop. Like, yeah, they're just both Hawkeye. It's fine.
Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions. Quit out. If you're
again,
asking,
there was a time where Dick Grayson was Batman. I'm just like, yeah, he should have just kept being Batman. I don't understand why Bruce Wayne coming back meant he couldn't be Batman anymore and had to go back to being Nightwing. He was better at being Batman, honestly, to me. But whatever.
Yeah.
Just a different takes on characters. So the big thing I have to talk about before we end this thing was the thing I was looking up, which is the Tommy Westfall problem. Mm-hmm. Which is that the show St. Elsewhere, which was a hospital show, ended its last episode with showing that everything that happened in the series had been a dream of this autistic kid, Tommy Westfall, and that the St. Elsewhere Hospital was in this snow globe. Now, okay, it's one thing to say, oh, this was all a dream, but St. Elsewhere was such a big TV show that it crossed over with lots of other TV shows that crossed over with other TV shows.
Oh, no.
Meaning that all those other TV shows are also part of the Tommy Westfall dream.
Oh, no.
So
that's pretty bad. Oh, my God.
Like, shows that are included in that. The X-Files.
Oh.
Law and Order.
Yep. Naturally.
Just like, I need to find a better list. But it's like a lot.
Have you watched through 30 Rock?
I have watched through 30 Rock.
Fucking finding out that Kevin is just eternal. Like he's just
okay.
That's
Alf,
the kind of
All in the Family, All My Children, Ally McBeal, American Horror Story Murder House.
Fuck yeah,
buddies. Community.
I mean, that makes sense.
Drew Carey Show, ER, like, because you tie one crossover to another one. It's like kind of unbelievable. Like all of TV is tied up. Seinfeld, Star Trek.
In a crossover with what? What was this? What was the name again?
The original, the show that does it is St. Elsewhere.
Okay.
And then it's through crossovers with like shows crossing over with it, then those shows crossing over with other shows crossing over with other shows, and like in minor ways, like any small detail will get added to the master list.
So basically, like 90% of TV or whatever is
yeah, pretty much.
That's fucking great.
It's all a dream of this one kid.
TV isn't real. Holy shit!
It's all a lie.
Also,
dream.
As my last statement about continuity. There we go. The Leia Superman scene has its grounds in some of the expanded universe. I think in an episode of Rebels. So, suck on that one. The hyperspace tracking is mentioned at least twice, maybe 3 times. So, there's that. Yeah, and then there was that time that they made a whole movie to show why the Death Star had a hole in it that could be made to destroy the whole thing. So, yeah, my last bits on some people's complaints, I guess. There you go.
Yeah.
That's
And
all I
like
got.
my final thought is like that stuff matters as much as you feel like it should matter. Like it
Oh,
can
yeah,
matter,
absolutely.
and it cannot. You can just ignore it. But I like complicated continuity because I like different kinds of stories being mashed up together. Like that's why I like comic books in general. Is this like the Punisher is a classic example. He's just a standard action anti-hero type character, but when you put him in the Marvel universe and he has to deal with this fantastic bullshit, it's
Yeah.
funny. Like that time he became a Frankenstein monster. He became Frank Castle, became Frankencastle.
Oh, no.
And it took way too long for that pun to be willed into existence in an actual story.
Great.
Yeah.
I learned a lot today. I guess I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about comics. Like I think I developed more solid feelings and understanding of like how I feel about continuity and stuff. Like yeah, really I think a lot of it boils down to the completionist side. Like I want to do all the things and a lot of times it's not feasible. But
Yeah.
who knows, maybe someday I'll settle. I'll be like, I'll just do this thing for this
Yeah, and
superhero. And
was-
that will be a lie. And then I'll start into everything else.
Yeah, for me, it's literally I like jumping into the middle of a story and then figuring out, and if I like it, figuring out all that stuff later. Like, I'll read a comic. Oh, there's this character I don't know. I'll look them up on Wikipedia or whatever and find out all the stories they were in previously, and maybe those will be interesting, or maybe they won't. Who
Yeah.
knows?
That's like anyone complaining about not knowing Snoke's backstory. It's gonna fucking happen. Like, it's one way or another. It's gonna be a film, a book, or a comic. We're gonna get it. It's gonna come up. Questions will be answered. Maybe you won't like their answers.
Yeah, maybe you won't like their answers, but someone
Yeah.
will answer it.
Yeah, continuity.
Like, maybe J.K. Rowling will answer.
Oh, we didn't even fucking talk about J.K. Rowling. Oh, man. It turns out there's another hour of this in this podcast. Jesus Christ. Harry Potter and the Cursed Podcast. What a... That's a bad example of continuity. No, okay, that's... The podcast isn't over yet. We actually need to talk about this.
All right.
There's two endings to this podcast. We didn't have the balls to end it, so now we're gonna...
It's like the movie
Yeah.
Clue, which has 3 endings. And depending on which theater you showed up to, you would have gotten one of them at the time. That's a ballsy
is-
move people don't pull off.
That is.
Just saying. Nope. Some of these theaters get this shitty ending. Some of these theaters get this shitty ending. And some of these theaters get the good ending. Who knows what you'll get?
So yeah, J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter universe is like, for me, I think that one of the most terrible ways to handle continuity and expanded universe stuff. Like, she's fucking terrible at it.
Look, it's a good example of where you go, oh, I as a fan should just ignore this stuff. Even if it's from the same creator, this stuff
Yeah.
just doesn't matter.
And like, yeah, she didn't technically write Cursed Child, but she signed off on it. Like, it technically is canon. Like, we have super time turners now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with like limited continuity stuff where something is like just starting to branch out into stuff and fucks it up, where it feels like it's the worst because it's like, oh, everything was good and now this one thing is bad. It's like the thing I like about comics is just there's so much that, like, of course there's lots of garbage. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine, don't worry about it. Whereas people, I feel like when they've gotten it really attached to a property that's like
Yeah.
all been good, like Star Wars or something, like you watch those 3 movies, you're like, that's Star Wars, but you start
they
going
add
into other
stuff,
stuff
and
and
it's
you're
like,
like,
shit.
this is fucking garbage. What's happening? It's like, yeah, because like the more other stuff you bring out that's like not related, like the bigger chance that it is for that to happen, and it's gonna happen. There's gonna be stuff that's not good or that you just don't like.
Yeah. And
But-
I think some of her problem is that there's no space to branch out. like most of the extra information we know is probably a combination of her like giving one-off answers at like
It's
interviews or
yeah,
like
it's
drunk tweeting
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever it
I
is.
mean, the problem is it's like it's just extra information. It's not like actually a different story in the world
No,
using the setting. It's
it's
just like
just
here are these dumb facts that aren't in the thing because they don't matter,
yeah, but
or they are in the thing and they don't matter, like the fucking epilogue.
like we just we've definitely talked about the whole like Dumbledore's gay thing. And
Yes.
like that in and of itself isn't a problem. And people point to like the one or two lines in the book that like, oh, see this right here, like kind of gives the okay, one line in the book. If people didn't fucking pick up on it
Yeah.
solidly,
I don't understand. Like,
it's like you're
again,
reaching
it's
a
the thing
little
of like,
bit.
if this mattered, she should have written it in strong. Like, if she cared about that, she should have put it more in the book,
Like,
made it clearer.
yeah, if you're going to
It's
reveal that information later,
yeah.
I think it's best to have a base. She could have had that in her head and just never said it.
Like, I mean, it partially gets into my problem with Cora and the the lesbian relationship at the end of that. Just
Yeah,
that
'cause it's
it
just
want
not.
if it's important to the thing, it should be in there. Like, why are you like not having it? Like, why is it like only on the periphery? Like, if it's
Yeah.
important to the story, it should be in the story. It needs to be in there, or you're just
Well,
like, it's bad writing.
And for Harry Potter, like I kind of get why she wouldn't want to do this, but instead of like answering a random question one night when you're on your couch with a bottle of wine, like have a backstory, have a comic or some shit that's Dumbledore's life or something, and like
Yeah.
reveal not even his life, just like, oh, this is an adventure that Dumbledore went on once, and then it comes out like naturally in that
I mean,
thing
like
that he's gay.
how Blizzard revealed Tracer was gay. They put out a comic book that said
Yeah,
she had a girlfriend.
yeah, fucking exactly. Like she just comes home and she has a girlfriend. And it's like, okay, and then people
This is
shat
just
their
a
pants.
fact. This is just a fact about her. Like, we're just telling this simple
Yeah.
story, but through that, it reveals this simple
Yeah.
fact. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, and it was a fucking great comic. Like that wasn't even the point of it. Like,
Yeah, no.
I love that fucking story. That was great. I felt so happy at the end. I was it was an emotional ride that I was happy to be on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the right way to do that thing. And she just, I think the latest thing she had was there's someone, I don't know if they were writing fan fiction or they wanted to put on a production of some sort, but it's Harry Potter, and I think kind of the deal is that it's an all black cast. That's totally fine, obviously. Like, I don't think, okay, I mean, there's the purists or whatever assholes are like, no, you can't because the characters are white. And someone tweeted at Rowling, was like, do you support black Hermione? She's like, absolutely I do. Never once in the books do I mention a character's race. And someone, of course, immediately finds like Hermione's white face poking out from behind the tree. It's like, okay. There are limits here. You need, like, it's fine. You can support it, but don't make that claim. Ugh.
I mean, that's just being dumb.
Yeah.
Just
And it's stuff like that. It's just how she handles it is just crazy. Someone once kind of compared her like to George Lucas, just like whatever she says goes now. Like Dumbledore being gay is the key to all of this.
it's similar to George Lucas in that she's like has authority over this thing.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem really interested in actually making more of it. It's just still is the controlling power of like this thing she made that people care, that honestly probably other people care about more than she does,
Oh, I'd say so.
which is like the thing that happened with Lucas and Star Wars.
I have not looked nearly enough into like interviews or any pieces written about her or what she's said to know this, but I think it's one of those things where like she didn't want to only be the person who wrote Harry Potter. Like she wanted that to be a part of her repertoire.
Yeah.
Because she even wrote those other books like under a pseudonym, and they didn't like. I don't remember their titles, and that should say enough about it. So it's I kind of understand that, but
Yeah, I mean, that was
God
like the
damn.
whole reason Star Wars was like needed to be rescued by those novels was because they're just George Lucas stopped making Star Wars stuff and wasn't allowing, up until then hadn't allowed anyone else to make Star Wars stuff. Like
Yeah.
that you don't get these breaths of continuity where these things can be explored properly within stories without like letting people make it. Like licensing that stuff out or whatever if you're not going to.
People were just so damn upset about the 12 parsecs comment that they needed to create the expanded universe to retcon.
Exactly. I mean, also, the thing was, I recently heard a thing about how those books came about, and it was like, just everyone involved, nobody thought anyone was, they didn't think it was going to be a big thing when they put out that first book. And then, but they marketed it like out as much as they could, and then it was such a big hit that then they were just like, all right, now we'll just make whatever. We'll just we need to make more and more and more and more and more.
We're in,
books.
boys. I mean, also the fact that Timothy Zahn is fucking great. Like, his writing is on point.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing was, when they started, they were like limiting it to one book a year, and then eventually
and like
they
one
were not.
a day.
Yeah, like they went out of control eventually, which is
yeah.
I feel like the movies are eventually going to go probably.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I will bitch and complain about every goddamn spin-off they make, and I will be there for every single one on opening night, and then I'll buy it on Blu-ray whenever it comes out. That's gonna
Until
be
they're
my
releasing
life.
like two movies every day. You just physically can't do it.
Oh, I'll make it. I'll make it work. Well, I'll be there. No, but that's like I'm trying to catch up on the current canon. And then honestly what will probably happen is I'll start going to like selected works from the Legend stuff, like the Darth Plagueis novel or whatever. But yeah, I think it would be healthier for Harry Potter at this point to get into that a little bit more. Like, I have zero interest in Fantastic Beasts, but I think it could serve well from like some more books or comics or something. They're weird in that they started as books, right? Because generally when it's a book series, like you don't have other authors like doing Lord of the Rings universe stuff.
It's also weird because it was like, I don't know, like yeah, because you think of like the thing that happened with Tolkien wasn't that people were writing Lord of the Rings, but they were writing Lord of the Rings rip-off stuff constantly.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just,
which has already happened.
Yeah, which has happened plenty. The thing that's weird to me is that like Harry Potter has this crazy the fan fiction community for it has like invented alternate personalities for all the characters that the fan fiction's all consistent with, from what I understand, like the limited exposure I have from friends reading that stuff.
That sounds right.
That like the fan community has these ideas of these characters that don't actually match up with who those characters are strictly in the books, but they've all decided that that's who these characters are, which I just find amusing.
Well, I mean, that's like, it's not, yeah, it's amusing. I don't think it's surprising, because like if you don't, the people love that. Like, it's pretty, I don't necessarily like Harry Potter as much as many people, but it's stupid to say that it's not insanely popular still. And I think there's, people want more of it and they're not getting it, so they're gonna make up their own shit. Like, yeah. And I guess it kind of makes sense that the bigger, I guess, bigger names, if you will, in that community, like, they're going to come together and try to have some sort of consistency, because I think a certain amount of that is enjoyable.
So I think if Rowling were licensing out the ability for other authors to write Harry Potter books, I feel like that's what it would follow that same trajectory. Like the expanded Harry Potter universe, whatever versions of these characters would have their own consistency and be different from the thing she invented, and then that would have its own passionate community that would probably be smaller than the greater Harry Potter community, which, because I feel like that's what happened with Star Wars. Like the people who loved the Star Wars Expanded Universe books loved them, but it's like a separate thing that's kind of related and kind of not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely. There's only so much you can do. Like, you're not gonna, even if you had all these extra Harry Potter books and comics and stuff, you're not gonna make J.K. Rowling go back and like incorporate them into her books. Mm-hmm. Though I could totally see her doing that. I could see it
if she liked the thing. But
yeah,
it would be entirely up to what she cared about, or entirely up to how popular a thing is. Like Thoth, incredibly popular, so it gets worked back in just on sheer marketability power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a weird area though. Like I hate how she handles all of that.
It's just look, you shouldn't be given out. Like, continuity shouldn't be dished out through Twitter. That's not.
No, it's not.
It just shouldn't. That's a bad form. It's a bad medium. Period. Like, for anything. So it only fits that it would be.
I mean, just imagine like Tolkien back from the grave sets up at Twitter like.
I mean, that would be pretty dope because it would probably mostly be linguistic stuff.
Oh, no, it'd be awesome. But, like, if he was pulling a Rowling and hadn't written, like, all this, or hadn't released all this excess stuff, and his son hadn't, like, hey, guys, you know Sauron?
Yeah.
What if he was the lieutenant of a badder guy? And then everyone that's all he says. He doesn't give any fucking context or any details. That's all we get. And then people just lose their shit and you don't know any, like, it'd be terrible.
What if?
Oh. Yeah, what if? Another what if.
But actually, that I wonder if that Twitter account exists. It's like just the version of that for Tolkien that's just like tweets out Silmarillion stuff. It's like as if it's like a big deal. Like, oh, this fact about Lord of the Rings. Oh man,
I'm sure there is, or like maybe like a not necessarily like it's a big deal, but sort of a did you know kind of thing. I'm sure there's a fact.
I'm sure there's a did you know, but I just like the fake, like he's a living author and is doing stuff like Rowling, like just dishing out info like Rowling does.
That would. Oh. Bilbo was demisexual.
Fuck.
You heard it here first. Just no other details. Remember that one? No, actually, remember that one line he said? It's like page 462, paragraph 3, line 4, word 6 of the 50th anniversary Lord of the Rings edition. You can see it. It's there. The implication is there.
Gollum was black the whole time.
Oh, no. No. The black people in Lord of the Rings were the evil men from the West. Come on. We already have that lore established.
Geesh. Those were brown people. It's fine.
Okay. Actually, I got a J. Crew catalog here. They're like Umber. So, joke's on you. Whatever. As long as it's not H.P. Lovecraft levels of racist, like, we're probably fine. But anyway, we got our Harry Potter talking. I totally forgot about that. Oh, good times.
I think that's a podcast. That was fun times.
Yeah, no, that's the podcast now. We have the real ending.
All right. You can email us at saltcirclepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on soundcloud.com/saltcircle, on Twitter at saltcirclepod, and you can find me on Twitter at comicpanels.
And I'm on Twitter at bean_LP. Stay tuned for continuity breaking podcast episodes, I guess. The darker timelines. Where Ben is not the sidekick anymore.
Oh no!